Hey, Shalom Israel. This is Officer Abel.
Officer Gaddy, yeah.
And what we're going to go over today is how to count a Israelite calendar. Make sure you follow the right. Because you don't know when the feast days are starting, then guess what? You don't know how to keep the commandments. So that's what we're going to go over today, how to mark up your calendar. You have to know how to do this, especially you men when you're teaching. All right? You teaching your family. Make sure they know when the feast day is coming for you. They can be prepared. All right? So first and foremost, you got to know when the month begins. So let's get that real quick.
This is the book of Numbers, chapter 10, verse 10. Also, in the day of your gladness, and in your solemn days, and in the beginnings of your months, ye shall blow with the trumpet over your burnt offerings, and over the sacrifices of your peace offerings, that they may be to you for a memorial before your God. I am your God.
So, in the day of your gladness, in the beginning of your months. So, this is a feast that you're supposed to be having. It's the day of gladness, right? And it's the beginning of your month. You get Psalms 81 and 3.
The book of Psalm, chapter 81, verse 3. Blow up the trumpet in the new moon, in the time appointed on our solemn feast day.
So the new moon is that feast day that was mentioned in Numbers 10 and 10, all right? So blow up the trumpet and the new moon. I get it, Genesis, for we know that the new moon, it starts when the moon is full. If you have something that is new, it has to be completed. You don't have a new car, but you only got a bumper. That don't make sense. All right?
The book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 14. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years.
You see that? Let there be lights with an S. There were two lights. It was not dark when the first moon was made. Let there be lights. All right? So, we're going to speed things up. I'm trying to keep the classes for when you get in your car. By the time you get to your job, you have heard the whole class. All right? So, this is one of the classes that you would have to see, so hopefully you're a passenger in your car. But let's go to Sirach. You know what I want. Sirach. What is 43?
Yes, sir.
Get that, verse 6.
Sirach, chapter 43, verse 6. He made the moon also to serve in her season for a declaration of times and a sign of the world. From the moon is the sign of feasts, a light that decreaseth in her perfection.
So the light and it decreases, right? It was perfect and it decreases, all right? And this is the sign for your feast. So the first thing you got to know how to set up your calendar, you got to know when the new moon starts. So you got to go and look up when the full moon begins, all right? So that's how you would know that that's the first day of the month. And you have to remember, our month do not begin the same way that the month begin in America or wherever, United States. Because for them, January the 1st might start on a Tuesday. That don't mean that the full moon is starting on that Tuesday. But for us, our days start whenever the full moon hits. All right. All right. Let's bring up that the calendar. All right. This is the month of January 2023, and the full moon is Friday night. Starts the same day of the Sabbath. So right there, you would say this is the first day of the 11th month. Because you have to remember that Feast of Dedication is the 9th month and the 25th day, and it's for 8 days. So that means that there's going to be a new moon within the Feast of Dedication, and that new moon is the 10th month. So now we're in January. That means the 11th month is about to begin because we already did Feast of Dedication. So the 11th month is going to start Friday night, right? So that's number one. And then number two would be Saturday night. All right. So number two would go into Saturday night. And so that's the 7th and the beginning of the 8th. All right. So number three would be between 8 and 9. So that's going to be the night of the 8th and the daytime of the 9th. You get what's going on right here, right? So the fourth day will be between the 9 and the 10. Because everything, you remember, the days start at night. So it's the night of on the 9th and the daytime of the 10th. That's the fourth day. Then go to the 5, go to 6, then you go to 7. All right, so that's so on and so on until you get to the next what? The next full moon. All right. The next full moon is February the 5th. All right, so now the next full moon is during the Babylonian times. We were in Babylonian captivity. They start calling it Adar, Adar. But that is the 12th month, all right? The 12th month starts at the night of the 5th. So that right there, that would be the first day of that, right? That's the first day of the 12th month. As you go to the second day of the 12th month. The third day. Go to the third day of the first month. Let's go to the fourth day. All right. Now go all the way to the 13th day. So that's the 14th day, right? 13th day. Yeah, the 13th day. All right. All right. So right there, just keep it right there. Now you should wonder what happens on the 12th month on the 13th day. Let's get it so you can know. This is how you can mark up your calendar. You got to make sure you know how to do this. This is part of keeping the commandments. Let's start at Second Maccabees. Let's start at 14 and 14. We're gonna jump around a little bit. You got a little history of destruction of Nicanor.
This is the book of 2 Maccabees, chapter 14, verse 14. Then the heathen that had fled out of Judea from Judas came to Nicanor by flocks, thinking the harm and calamities of the Jews to be their welfare. Now when the Jews heard of Nicanor's coming, and that the heathen were up against them, they cast earth upon their heads, and made supplication to him that had established his people forever, and who had always helped his portion with manifestation of his presence. So at the commandment of the captain they removed straightways from thence, and came near unto them at the town of Dessah. Now Simon, Judas's brother, had joined battle with Nicanor, but was somewhat discomfited through the sudden silence of his enemies. Nevertheless, Nicanor, hearing of the manliness of them that were with Judas, and the courageousness that they had to fight for their country, does not try the matter by the sword.
So let's stop right there. So when the Canaanite first came around, he wasn't trying to really mess with us like that. Cause he heard about manliness and he was like he was kind of enthused with us and how we went to battle. You know what I'm saying? Cause we were the most high people. And let's jump down to let's go to 23 real quick.
Verse 23. Now Nicanor abode in Jerusalem and did no hurt, but sent away the people that came flocking unto him. And he would not willingly have Judas out of his sight, for he loved the man from his heart. He prayed him also to take a wife to beget children. So he married, was quiet, and took part of this life.
All right, so you see that. So, hey, Nicanor, he was chilling, and then guess what? He pissed off some people because they were like, hey, don't supposed to be like this. You don't supposed to be around them. So now they start lying. You know, it's just talking back and forth. You know how heathens are. They're going to start lying, and now Nicanor upset. You're like, oh, I got to handle some business. So now he's going to be what we call acting different. He's going to come acting different. So let's go to verse 28.
Verse 28. When this came to Nicanor's hearing, he was much confounded in himself, and took it grievously that he should make void the articles which were agreed upon, the man being in no fault. But because there was no dealing against the king, he watched his time to accomplish this thing by policy. Notwithstanding, when Maccabeus saw that Nicanor began to be churlish unto him,
so he started being rude to him because he's trying to solve it. He didn't want to go with hand-to-hand comeback at first. So he was trying to but now he's trying to act big and bad. Now he's trying to act tough. Just put it that way. He's trying to act tough. All right, read on.
and that he entreated him more roughly than he was wont, Perceiving that such sour behavior came not of good, he gathered together not a few of his men, and withdrew himself from Nicanor. But the other, knowing that he was notably prevented by Judas's policy, came into the great and holy temple, and commanded the priests that were offering their usual sacrifices to deliver him the man.
Let's stop right there. Stop. We're gonna jump around. I don't want to get the whole story. So when you're reading this, there's all kinds of BS going on. They just wanted us to be. They wanted us to leave our heritage and be like them and do whatever the king says. But we wasn't hearing it. They wanted to profane our temple. They want to take back over. So let's jump to 26 when the battle's about to begin.
Verse 26. But Alchemists, perceiving the love that was betwixt them, and considering the covenants that were made, came to Demetrius and told him that Nicanor was not well affected toward the state.
All right, hold on. I meant to say, I didn't give you the right chapter. Chapter 15 and verse 26.
The book of 2 Maccabees, chapter 15 and verse 26. But Judas and his company encountered the enemies with invocation and prayer.
So we prayed and we made sure our mind was right with God before we went into battle.
So that fighting with their hands and praying unto God with their hearts, they slew no less than 35,000 men. For through the appearance of God they were greatly cheered. Now when the battle was done, returning again with joy, they knew that Nicanor lay dead in his harness. They made a great shout and a noise, praising the Almighty in their own language.
You see that? We were praising God that we won the war. Victory for us. We destroyed them. Read on.
And Judas, who was ever the chief defender of the citizens, both in body and mind, and who continued his love towards his countrymen all his life, commanded to strike off Nicanor's head, and his hand with his shoulder, and bring them to Jerusalem.
You see that? He chopped Nicanor up, chopped his behind up. Read on.
So when he was there and had called them of his nation together, and set the priests before the altar, he sent for them that were of the tower, and showed them vile Nicanor's head, and the hand of that blasphemer, which with proud bags he had stretched out against the holy temple of the Almighty. And when he had cut out the tongue of that ungodly Nicanor,
he cut his tongue off. Read on.
He commanded that they should give it by pieces unto the fowls. And
they chopped it up and gave it to the birds. Go ahead.
And hang up the reward of his madness before the temple. So every man praised toward the heaven the glorious Lord, saying, Blessed be he that hath kept his own place undefiled.
Because they kept the temple undefiled by these heathens. Read.
He hanged also Nicanor's head upon the tower, an evident and manifest sign unto all of the help of the Lord. And they ordained with
that they gave all praise to the Most High. Read on.
And they ordained all with a common decree in no case, to let that day pass without solemnity, but to celebrate the 13th day of the 12th month.
So to celebrate the 13th day of the 12th month. And that's what we were just showing you. That's how we know when Nicanor is starting, because it's the 13th day of the 12th month. So we went on the calendar and we saw what the 13th day was. Read on.
Which in the Syrian tongue is called Adar, the day before Mordecai's day.
The day before Mordecai's day. All right, let's go back to the calendar.
The scriptures say, where there is no vision, the people perish.
Shalom, Israel. This is Bishop Nathaniel. I want you to know that you can view all our Sabbath classes live on I.U.I.C. TV. That's right, I said on I.U.I.C. TV.
Do you know history?
I'm going to show you and prove to you that the Israelites are black, were always black.
Dance for time, just move up your body. Don't get loose and groove on the body. Bruise, wine.
Put on the armor, the procedure complete. Me nah go back, nah retreat. All traitors, every Jezebel must get delete. Me no sleep on a demon, me keep a full clip. Conspire me downfall, cause them want see me slip. Stay close to the real ones, we seal off and legit. Cause I gotta use them to keep your soul from the pit. This a war life, I swear the damn thing.
Alright. So like we said, the new moon was on the 5th. Alright. So The 13th, what we found the 13th was on, was it the night of the 17th?
Yeah, the night of the 17th.
All right, so we went to the night of the 17th. Yep, the night of the 17th. And it says, in the scripture, what it says, right before whose day?
Right before Mordecai's day.
All right, the day before Mordecai's day. So now, since that's the 13th, let's find out what is this Mordecai's day that they're talking about. Because you got to understand, we're going through and finding the feast days. So let's go to Esther. If you already got it, you can read it if you already got it.
Yes, sir.
Esther chapter 9.
This is Esther chapter 9, verse 1. Now in the 12th month, that is the month Adar, on the 13th day of the same, when the king's commandment and his decree drew near to be put in execution, and the day that the enemies of the Jews hoped to have power over them, though it was turned to the contrary, that the Jews had rule over them that hated them. The Jews gathered themselves together in their cities throughout all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus, to lay hand on such as sought their hurt, and no man could withstand them, for the fear of them fell upon all the people. And the rulers of the provinces, and the lieutenants, and the deputies, and the officers of the king helped the Jews, because the fear of Mordecai fell upon them. For Mordecai was great.
So they let Mordecai loose. Everybody was scared of Mordecai. Read on.
For Mordecai was great in the king's house, and his fame went out throughout all the provinces. For this man Mordecai waxed greater and greater. Thus the Jews smote all their enemies with the stroke of the sword, and slaughter, and destruction, and did what they would unto those that hated them.
All right, now let's go to verse 20.
Verse 20. And Mordecai wrote these things, and sent letters unto all the Jews that were in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus, both nigh and far, to establish this among them, that they should keep the 14th day of the month Adar.
You see, now it's in the 14th day. Right before that was the 13th day that we just saw. Read on.
And the 15th day of the same yearly, as the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, and the month which was turned unto them from sorrow to joy, and from mourning into a good day, that they should make them days of feasting and joy, and of sending portions one to another, and gifts to the poor.
All right. You see that? So you wouldn't know when those days started unless you understand how the full moon works. So you hit the full moon, you got that first day. You know what I'm saying? Then you count up to 13. Then you had the destruction of Nicanor. Then the next day after that, when you start praying, what they call Mordecai's day, Mordecai's day, you know what I'm saying? You got those for 2 days. So that's the 14th and the 15th. All right. So let's go back to the calendar. This is when it's going to get crazy because a lot of people get confused on this part. All right. So that's the 13th day where the mouse is right now. So they go to the 14th. And then let's go to the 15th. Bam. So Purim would have been over. Purim will be over when the 16th day would be on the 20th at nighttime. All right. That would be the 16th day. All right. So we got those. Now you should have another new moon. All right, yeah, March 7th at sundown. Now, the question you should ask yourself, is it springtime yet? I don't know about you, but I lived in like South Carolina, Georgia. I've been in those places. It's around the same latitude as Jerusalem. It ain't spring, brother. It's cold. I'm going to tell you straight up. It is still cold. You be in like the North Carolina area, it's still cold. It ain't springtime yet. So what you have to do? The Bible says, wait for spring, the corn. And let's get that real quick. Let's get that. Because you got to understand, it's the month of Abib starts with spring. So you have to wait on spring.
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 16, verse 1. Observe the month of Abib, and keep the Passover unto the Lord thy God. For in the month of Abib, the Lord thy God brought thee out of Egypt by night.
You see that? Observe the month of Abib. Let's get the one Let me see that. The one in Exodus. Yeah.
12, I think.
Yeah, they get the one in Exodus.
That's the
12 and
beginning
2. Oh, either 12 and 2.
The book of Exodus, chapter 12, verse 2. This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you.
Give me Exodus chapter 12 and verse 2. Then we're gonna jump from there to 23 and 15.
This is the book of Exodus, chapter 12, verse 2. This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you.
Now let's go to chapter 23 and verse 15.
Exodus chapter 23, verse 15. Thou shalt keep the feast of unleavened bread. Thou shalt eat unleavened bread 7 days, as I commanded thee, in the time appointed of the month Abib. For in it thou camest out of Egypt, and none shall appear empty before me.
All right. So the month of Abib should be the first of the month. And you have the Feast of Unleavened Bread within the first month. And let's see what Abib means. Because right now, this is the only month before Babylon that was named. Our month was not named until we went to Babylon. So pop that up when you got it.
This is Bible Study Tools, Abib, an ear of corn, the month of newly opened grain.
Ripen.
Ripened grain. Exodus 13 and 4, 23 and 15. The first of the Jewish ecclesiastical year, and the 7th of the civil year. It began about the time of the vernal equinox.
You see that? The vernal equinox. Let's see what vernal equinox mean. Get that one. Let's see when Abib's supposed to start. Cause a lot of people get confused. They were like, "Hey, when Abib starts, it's only 12 months in the year. What y'all doing? That's some Egypt stuff." Vernal equinox, March the 20th when that comes by around. You see that? And the last new moon is March the 7th. That is not the Passover. Should not be starting in March. You see that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be after that. All right. So you have to understand. Actually, let's get a definition. You want to say what happens on vernal equinox?
What happens on vernal equinox? The equinox, vernal and autumnal. There are only 2 times of the year when the Earth's axis is tilted neither toward nor away from the sun, resulting in a nearly equal amount of daylight and darkness at all latitudes.
All right. Now, we all know the world revolves around us. All right, but look at this. You see the equinox, vernal and autumnal. That is spring and fall. You get it? Spring and fall. Mm-hmm. So the new Abib is doing the month of, the season of spring. That's the season. So the month of Abib is when the grain's at its fullness and it's during the springtime. So that's the time that you should be getting ready for Passover, like we just read. So let's pop the calendar back up. All right, so this is the so March the 7th at nighttime will be the second Adar, right there. That starts there. All right, so that's it for that month. It's just the second Adar. So now let's go to the month of April. New moon starts April 6th. April 6th. All right, there we go. The new moon starts April the 6th, right? Now, we're going to read about Passover, see how far we got to go for Passover. Get Leviticus 23.
This is the book of Leviticus, chapter 23 and verse 5. And the 14th day of the first month at even is the Lord's Passover.
The 14th day of the first month, which is the month of Abib, like we just read, at evening, meaning the 15th day. 15th day. So the same way we counted for everything else, that's how you're going to get to Passover. And Passover is how long? 7 days. All right. So let's go back to the calendar. All right, so we had that. That's the first day of our bib on the month of Abib. Considered the new year, the true new year, right there. So they're going ahead and count 15. So that's one already. All right, so right there on the what that is, the night of the 20th, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the night of the 20th when Passover starts. So from right there, look, you already filling out your calendar. So you know the next month you're gonna have the day of Simon, and if you count from the Sabbath day, so what the Sabbath day, the Sabbath day from Passover, the 22nd, the Sabbath day, not that Sabbath, not the first day Sabbath, that Sabbath, right? After that Sabbath day ends, you count 7 more Sabbath. Then then the next day, which would be on a Sunday, that's when you get Pentecost. So you have to do some reading in Leviticus to know how you get to Pentecost, but that's how you fill out your calendar based off the full moon, which is the actual new moon. All right, that's your first day, and that's how you can keep it going. You'll know when springtime starts. You can you'll know because you can see it and feel it when springtime starts. You know when it's still winter. So when it's springtime starts, that new moon is the first day of Abib. All right. And with that, I say shalom. Hey, shalom.
What is a nation? Nation is men leading by example. Nation is family. Nation is community. Nation is children with role models. Nation is unity. Nation is you.